All right, so this video will be on marriage, as far as I know. All right, so marriage was created to protect the woman. Marriage isn't some like the way people look at it. They look at it like it's some heavenly thing sent down from God for man, but it's not. There was no well, as far as we know, there was no ceremony for Adam and Eve. Well, and that's not even an original story. So I'd be hating to use that because it's more a parable, if anything. But there's the marriage ceremony is the wedding. That's a business. They sell that. That's a business, and the whole romance thing, that's a business. So it's like the way that they sculpt marriage is the reason why it doesn't work most of the time. It's because it's created the image of what marriage actually is just off. Marriage wasn't created, I guess you could say, by God for some holy purpose. Marriage was created so that the woman would be protected for the rest of her life. That's why marriage is a contract. That's the reason why there's a contract and there are vows that can't be broken. So that the person is protected, so that the female is protected. Because if a man was to sleep with the woman and take her virginity and then just leave her after that, no other man would take her because she lost her virginity. She was they would today they would call her damaged goods, but there was a word back then for it. But basically, she was deflowered. So there's a whole ceremony around deflowering. So if you slept with your wife and she didn't bleed on the sheets, then you had a problem. You know what I mean? After that, there would be a problem. I mean, you gave her father money to marry her. So you see what I'm trying to say? It was a different culture back then. And if you didn't, if the woman wasn't married, then who would be the provider for her? Who would she bear children for so that she would then have someone to take care of her? How would she do that? It was just a different society. But now, well, back then, if a woman was in that situation, she would probably go and be a prostitute because that would be what was left, which actually still happens today. It's what most women who don't have a male provider there for them do. With it's like what they if when push comes to shove, a woman will do what she has to do by using her body. In that sense, it's still current. Not every woman. I'm not saying every woman. There are tons of jobs available for women these days. Thanks to the women liberation movement or whatever. But what I'm saying is there are still women who decide to use basically what God gave them to make money because there's no provider. You see what I'm saying? Like back then, their women were taken care of in that way, and there was still prostitutes because they weren't taken care of. So that's what marriage was for. It was to protect the woman. That's why it's a contract with vows. And people don't understand that. Why would love need a contract? Why would love need vows? You know what I mean? True unconditional love doesn't need any of that because it's unconditional. Marriage is conditional. It's ridiculous. It's like they sell us one thing, but it's actually another thing in the package. So marriage is conditional. And going back to what I was saying, I don't even know if I said it in the last video, but let me just say how Jesus talks about. There's a story where the Pharisees or the Sadducees, one of them, come to Jesus and they try to question him about marriage. So back in those times, if a man was with his wife and he died and the woman didn't bear him any children, then his brother could take the woman and marry her and have impregnate her, and that baby would take on his brother's name. So they would do that. So they gave him the scenario: what if that happened like 7 times and nobody gave her a child? Because technically, if nobody gives her a child, everybody married her. Nobody gave her a child or whatever. She gets to go to the next person, and then the next person. So she's married, say, 7 people. So they want to know who will she belong to in the resurrection. And Jesus tells them that in the resurrection, people will be like angels. They won't give in marriage. There won't be marriage. And I don't know if a lot of people really understand that because of the paradigm of how we read, the scriptures or whatever. But that goes right along with people who have had near-death experiences or past life regression, or even people who had lucid dreams or out-of-body experience, or basically the face-to-face realm. When you become known as you are known, everybody realizes that. They realize that it isn't what we think it is. There's no problem with marriage. It's not, and that's the thing. That's what I realized the other day. It's not what we know, because everybody knows a lot of things that I tell them. It's not what they know, it's how they know it. It's We're looking at the exact same thing, but we're seeing it through two different filters. So you get different results and I get. So it's not what they know, it's how they know. So it's not necessarily that marriage is a bad thing. But one of the traits of people who come back from near death experiences, those who have near death experiences where they, not just die and come back, but have near death experiences, the one thing is they can't really be in a relationship because they understand that there is no such thing as possession, and unconditional love doesn't possess. And they understand that the person that they were once in possession of has been many different characters. So for example, and I'm going to go in extreme with it. So like a Jew and a Nazi, right? And this is a situation that has happened where a woman in her past life was Jewish, realized she was in a concentration camp, very scared and afraid until she left her body in the past life regression. When she left her body, she realized the purpose for the entire situation. She realized that the Jews, the souls playing Jews and the souls playing Nazis weren't against each other. They were actually in agreement that in all actuality they had, if you could say, signed a contract that that's the roles that they would play to learn to overcome fear and show unconditional love on both sides. The Nazis, the soldiers who knew it was wrong, was supposed to overcome fear and show unconditional love. Lay down their own lives to show what is right. Same thing with the Jews. They were supposed to overcome the fear of death or this punishment or oppression, and show unconditional love to their captors. That was the whole thing. So they realized that outside of the bodies, they weren't the characters that they played on Earth. So it would be ridiculous for them to hold that against anybody, because they know that every single person is doing the exact same thing. It's contractual that we come to Earth together. That's what we agreed on, that we would come to Earth and incarnate together to learn lessons as certain individuals. Like, for example, if you have a family member in your family that's always arguing, it's always manipulative, that's not who they are on a spirit level. That's who you and them have agreed that they would be, so that they could experience that, and you could experience how to be loving and not fearful towards that, and how they could overcome that. It's the exact same thing. So it's not that's not who they are in the spirit. They're not annoying and antagonizing or manipulative in the spirit. And when they incarnate, those things come through. Not necessarily is that they chose to be born to parents who would manipulate each other, or be argumentative in front of them, so that they would learn those traits, so that later on, when you see what I'm saying? It's because it's all mental. Who the person actually is and their personality is mental. It's what the neural, what the neurons combine together to be basically who they are on a subconscious level. So marriage, the reason that the people of the resurrection, those who are, even those who are born again, because I have to talk about that in the next video. They understand where they actually come from and what they actually are. So they don't see any other individual as something that they can possess, because they realize, for example, they don't give in marriage. They also don't have children, because though a child is born on earth, that spirit pre-existed that flesh. That spirit is eternal, has always existed, just like yours. So, uh, though that's why Jesus said, "Flesh gives birth to flesh, and spirit gives birth to spirit." Fleshly parents give birth to the flesh of their children, but the spirit came from God. That child's spirit is equal to you. It's not. It may not have earth experience in this body. This body's memory and neurological, like the experiences that build neural pathways and stuff like that, may have not have developed yet, and it may not have gone through enough experiences to know how to make it through life and how to do certain things. But the spirit of that child is equal to you, if not more mature, because that's also happening. All right, so if that child has incarnated more times than you have, or learned lessons faster than you have in previous lives on a spiritual level, it could be more mature than you are. So for you to look at it as an unequal is just dysfunction. So I that's marriage. I don't want the video to go over 10 minutes, but I'll talk about it in another video, I guess.